Hello and welcome to Looking for a Man in His 30s, a Criminal Minds podcast. I'm Emma.
And I'm Sara, and today we'll be discussing Season 1, Episode 2, Compulsion, which originally aired on September 28th of 2005. But first, before we get into the episode, we would like to issue a content warning.
Due to the nature of this show, we will be discussing sensitive topics, which could include murder, violence, sexual assault, domestic abuse, animal abuse, elder abuse, alcohol, drugs, racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, and more. Please take this into account when deciding when, where, and if to listen. First, I didn't actually have a chat prepared for this, but I am going to tell you that I've been exceedingly annoyed by my webcam that I had to buy because the webcam on my computer does not work. I tried to set it up like 3 or 4 times this morning, and so I was really fucking annoyed because I thought it wasn't going to work. Also, I took my notes for this episode using the speech-to-text function on my phone. I had headphones in while watching it on my laptop, and nothing has made me more certain that we should never be relying on computers to do translations or captions or subtitles for us. Please, guys, stop using AI. It doesn't make any sense. Like, half of these things arsonist has been referred to as different things, like including asthma for some reason, because the phone report I was saying asthma, the asthma, and one as arsonist. It was literally arsonist, but with the word arse. And I was like, I cannot get through it. I've made some amendments, but Sara, when you're going through the Google Doc, you're going to be like, we'll get down to it, and you'll be like, what the hell is that? It's spelled hot-strung a lot of times. L is either a capital L. I don't know if that's backwards, because I am. Is that backwards?
That's right. Well, it's the right way for me.
It's not the right way for me. I thought it was going to flip. Or they'll have referenced her as all, and I'm like, this is not going well.
If he's struggling with your accent, how is he going to work with mine?
Yeah, I'm beginning to think that my granddad was right about 15 years ago when he said that I should go for an elocution class. I'm just very upset. So next time I will be reverting to taking notes by hand and messing up my wrist. So that's cool. That's cool. Didn't need my wrist anyway. Do you have anything to share, Sara, about your frustrations this week?
Just a really slow internet, really. But hey, you'd think by 2025 it'd improve somewhat, but unless I'm just in an area where the signal's just a bit rubby.
I think you need to not use Wi-Fi. I think what we need to do is get an Ethernet cable and plug it into our laptops and plug it straight into the thing. No one else in the house can use the internet while we do this podcast, but it will get a better signal. I'm just not entirely sure that our parents will be really chill about that.
Yeah, probably not.
Okay, so do you have anything else, or should we start?
Let's get moving, shall we?
Okay, wheels up.
Wheels up.
We open on the scene that we left on last time. Gideon is being held at gunpoint by the clerk in a, frankly, a gas station that looks like it's from the movie House of Wax.
And it's in the middle.
Yeah, that should have been your first clue. Do not stop at a gas station in the middle of nowhere that looks like it's out of a horror film. To be honest, Gideon really should have known better. The clerk is telling Gideon to throw his gun because Gideon does have a gun in its holster, and Gideon, for some reason that I cannot understand, is really sarcastic. He's like, "Oh, any particular direction you'd like me to throw the gun in? This guy has a rifle on your head, dude. Stop." So then he hits Gideon with the butt of the gun, and Gideon takes into like a shack. He tells Gideon to take out his wallet, and Gideon does. It's got the FBI badge. And the clerk asks what Gideon knows about him. And Gideon goes, "I know a lot about you and the people you murdered." Now, the clerk looks like he is high on drugs. His eyes are wide, he's shaking. And then Gideon's like, "I know why you stutter." And we're not going to find out why till the end of the episode, because we flash back to the BAU where Gideon is being interviewed by students, and he says he was just there randomly. But the profile, he recognised the profile in the guy that he gave to the team a year ago. And he says sometimes these guys are just caught by dumb luck, really, like Berkowitz with a parking ticket. But Elle steps in and says, "Yeah, the cop who arrested Berkowitz wasn't staring down the barrel of a shotgun, though." She asks, "So why does he stutter?" And Gideon just kind of goes, "You want to be on the team? You figure it out." Like how teachers or parents will often be like, "Oh, you figure it out." But I don't know that entirely it's all to do with making sure that you can think for yourself and understand things. Sometimes I think it's just that they're like, "Please just do some busy work quietly in a different room." I'll probably cut. So Elle immediately runs out of the office with Gideon and goes to Reed and Morgan to ask if they know why the footpath killer stuttered. And Morgan's just like, "Hey, we asked Gideon too, but he won't tell us." And Reed is playing chess by himself, and Gideon just comes along and moves the thing. Checkmate, 3 moves. Great. And then we have JJ, who looks like a fresh new agent who has never seen a bad thing happening in her entire life. I say this because I rewatched Criminal Minds Evolution a few days ago, and JJ looks haunted there. You can see the trauma behind her eyes. So make the most of seeing JJ look happy and upbeat and like she's never had a thing go wrong. Now, JJ is the busiest person at the Bureau because she is always on the go, never in her office. If you want to talk to her, you'll have to call her cell because she's never in the office. She doesn't have time for things like playing chess at her desk. She gives Elle the paperwork to fill in, says, "I'm the BAU liaison." That basically means untangling bureaucracy. If you need anything, my door is always open because I'm never in my office. Hotch then asks the BAU to meet him in the conference room, and there's a serial arsonist in Tempe. Now, they show us a video where it's one of the students recorded the building across from him being on fire. And these students are just like, "Hey, look at that man, it's on fire. Should we call someone?" "No, there's always fires." Like, sorry, what? And I just had this horrific thought of when me and you were in uni, like someone just seeing like one of our halls on fire and just being like, "Nah, halls are always on fire, who cares?" As a general rule, I'm just going to put this out there, if you see a fire, assume it's not on purpose, or assume it's not being lit just for, you know, something like a bonfire. If you see a fire, call someone.
Yeah, not just stand there in like wonder of, "Oh, what's that?"
Yeah, just a general rule. Just a general rule. Please, if you see a fire, call the fire department.
Yeah.
And then there's smoke coming in underneath the door of these two guys who are recording the fire across and finding it also funny. The other one one of them is going over to the door to be like, oh, it looks like smoke. Oh, I think someone's pouring something in underneath the door. Oh, someone's trying to get in. By the way, at no point does he go, smoke, oil, smells like gas, someone trying to get in. He doesn't move back from the door. So essentially, he goes up in flames quite quickly.
Yeah.
The other one drops the camera to the floor and is beating him to try and get the flames out. And intro. So this is the first time we're getting the title cards, and I quite like the fact that you get a juxtaposition of the profilers and the serial killer mugshots. But there's a picture of Charles Manson in the title sequence, and whenever I see it, I think of Reed. I think, oh, that's Reed, but it's not. It's Charles Manson. It's just because in the later seasons, Reed grows his hair long, and so he does kind of look a bit like that mugshot of Charles Manson. You'll have to catch it in the next episode, Sara.
Will do.
Okay, so Morgan is in his smart suit for work. Reed is wearing a fairly vintage style of shirt. It looks like something your granddad would have worn in the 70s. So I'm thinking he just went, I need a shirt for work, and he just walked into the nearest thrift store and bought all of the shirts they had in his size. I think that is how Reed got all of his clothes for work, because they're not crisp and fitted like the ones that Morgan and Hotch are wearing. It's just like sort of baggy and looks like just someone dressing up as their granddad. We learned there are two main stressors for serial arsonists, either losing your job or a relationship breaking down. And I assume that you target your job or your relationships, they're going to look for anyone who has ever lost their job at the college or anyone that has ever been dumped at the college. I'll just give you a little bit of information about university campuses if you've not gone. They're filled with people breaking up and getting back together all the fucking time. Mm-hmm. The amount of drama in my halls, it's like, oh, I've just broken up with Max and we hate each other now. And then the next week, Max would be back in my kitchen and I'd be like, hey, this is weird. And then by the time I'd cooked my breakfast, they'd have broken up again.
Oh dear.
It was not worth remembering the names of the people they went out with sometimes. Like, there's no point. It won't be the same guy in another 3 weeks.
No. Well, my halls wasn't any better. Everyone was just with everybody.
I set a rule now. I set a rule when it was like, okay, if I've seen them 5-6 times in a month, then I can be like, okay, commit the name to long-term memory. Doesn't need to be like just short-term memory anymore. So yeah, I don't know how they're going to narrow down the list for relationship breakdown at the college. So let's, fingers crossed, it's one of the people who've lost their job. At least they'll have records of that.
True.
So they say that the arsonist did one fire in May and then in September, which I think tracks with like school breaks. You know, the campus closes down in June, students go home, and the campus doesn't open again until September. So I don't know quite why they're like, oh, that's so surprising. It's like, I mean, it's not that surprising. The unsub's not going to set a fire when there's no one there.
Yeah.
Like, so we get some stats on serial arsonists from Reed. 82% are white men who crave revenge. Gideon tells us to expect the unexpected and that this escalation means the unsub is craving something more dangerous. Jason does this brilliant thing as they get out. as they get out of the cars on the campus. He's like, okay, everyone, no badges. We don't want to tell this guy that he got the FBI involved. And he's like, look casual. Try not to look official. And that's easy enough for Jason, who's wearing an unbuttoned shirt and just like, I don't know, khaki pants? Would you say they were khaki?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So that's easy enough for him. He kind of looks like your dad who has gone from the office to your football game and he's just taken off the tie and jacket and thrown it in the back of the car. And then he turns back to see Hotch and Morgan in full suits, Elle in a blazer and sunglasses, and Reed, who, again, is dressed like an old man. And he just looks at them and he's like, try to look less official. And I mean, yeah, they do all look like they could be on the set of Men in Black. They're all wearing sunglasses, they're all in suits. He really should have said that before they got to the college campus. Like, I don't know why he didn't bring that up on the jet. Hey guys, do you have jeans you can wear?
Yeah, they stuck out like a sore thumb.
Yeah. If I saw them on my campus, if I saw anyone at our university wearing like a suit, I'd be like, what the hell? The fire inspector and Dean Thomas are greeting the BAU. They say that the chemistry department has got a lot of chemicals missing and they could be used to start the next fire. The dean says, I want to shut this place down, which, you know, fair. But the team warn her that if she does that, the arsonist will just leave too, will not be caught, and then the fires will start up again as soon as you open up the college again. You can't just keep the college closed down forever. So they work out that they have 1 day until the next fire because the chemicals went missing today and the chemicals used in the last fire were stolen 1 day before the fire. Reed and Hotch are in the dorm room of the people who filmed the fire at the initial start of the episode. They say that the arsonist had tried to get in. You can see the doorknob turning in the video. And when the arsonist can't get in, they pour the accelerant under the door to set a blaze to the room. But they ask why the arsonist would do that when they can't see the fire and they wouldn't be able to hear it for that long because they would have to evacuate the building. They can't just stand in front of a room that is literally on fire, they'll die. They also tell us that the arsonist had turned off the water so sprinklers wouldn't work. We learn that motives for arson are relatively simple: vandalism, crime concealment, political statement, profit, and revenge. They dismisses vandalism, and the team also dismiss revenge because the victim is well liked. But just because you're well liked by most people doesn't mean someone doesn't hate you. So I just want to point that out there. They've dismissed revenge and vandalism, so that leaves us with power. Reed says they're being used like chess pieces, the victims of these arsonists. Morgan has gone into a dorm that has like a really cool courtyard in the middle and like ivy plants growing over the side. And I was like, hell, how nice is this college campus? You know, you get a little courtyard in the middle of your dorm. He's like, hey, why would you start the fire on the 3rd floor of this building? Like, if you wanted to start a fire and set the building off, you would set it at the bottom so that the rest of the structure would burn. So he decides that you would start on the 3rd floor if it wasn't the building you wanted to set on fire, but perhaps the specific person. So that means we've got revenge back in the picture. Elle suggests that it might be a chemistry student who would know what chemicals needed to be used to create a fire. I, to be honest, think that I know how I could start a fire. I've got some matches behind me, and I'm pretty sure I could get gasoline fairly quickly, so I'm not sure that it needs a chemistry major. She says it can't be a professor because the guy lacks self-confidence, doesn't go to parties, doesn't feel comfortable in big group. And Reed looks at her like, are you talking about me? So she goes, well, he's obviously a psychopath as well. So Gideon tells Dean Turner, that he set up the tip line, but it's because he thinks the arsonist will call in. Dean Turner and Gideon are walking into a building, and Gideon sees a guy light up outside, and that wouldn't be something that Twig would find at all. But then the water fountain is not working. A student is trying to use it, it's not working, and Gideon can't see any damage to the actual water fountain. And he goes, wait, they've cut the water for this building. He orders everyone out. Meanwhile, a teacher is up in their classroom wondering why there's a lot of liquid on the floor that looks slightly brown. So I'm guessing that's the accelerant. And when he's looking into the closet, you can see that there's a little bit of powder in the light bulb. So when he switches the light on in the closet, boom! There's like essentially a ball of fire that jumps out at him. He is on fire. There's a fire in the building. Gideon has set off the fire alarms and told people to run. He's not explained anything to the head teacher, who's just standing there a bit bewildered. And there are lots of people running in as Gideon runs out. So that was something that made me think, wait, what's going on? The water is off in this building. Why are you running out and people running in? Yeah, so I was just confused about that. I mean, do you have any thoughts about that?
I think it was just sheer panic. So if you looked at everyone's faces, everyone was just like bewildered of what to do. And in a panic situation, you just run wherever, don't you?
Yeah. But so Gideon has run out of this building that he just walked into, and then there is an explosion, there's smoke filling the hallways, and Gideon has somehow run towards the fire. I do not understand, because I thought the fire was in this building where the water was turned off. I was so confused. Gideon has actually run to where the fire is. He's breaking in the door, trying to put the fire out with an extinguisher. Morgan and Elle are also both running towards the building across the campus. Morgan pulls Gideon physically out of the classroom where he's trying to put out the fire, because the teacher is dead at this point. He took the full force of the explosion.
Yeah.
There's no way he's going to be able to survive. And Gideon is essentially just endangering himself and anyone that would have to go in to rescue him. So Morgan has literally grabbed him and is basically dragging him down the fire escape stairs. Gideon tries to physically fight Morgan to be allowed to go back in, while Morgan is literally coughing up a lung, being like, the guy is dead! Elle is taking pictures of the crowd because an arsonist would stay to watch a fire. But I also have to say, I would also probably stop to watch a fire. If a building, would you?
It's just human reaction, isn't it? And you want to know what's happening. You're like, oh, what's going on over there?
Yeah, I don't know that I like the idea that someone would be like, well, she stuck around to watch the fire. Clearly, she's the arsonist. So they're going back to talking about the teacher. The dean says that the teacher is really well liked, he makes a difference. So it can't be that someone just hated their teacher. I still think that's a bit premature, but whatever. They've decided to evacuate the college, but it will take a long time and might actually accelerate the fire campaign. Gideon and Elle leave to do a press conference, and someone called Jeremy, one of the assistants in the chemistry department, comes to speak to Dean Turner. And he offers to help with the police investigation. Now, Dean Turner is initially going, "No, you need to get out of here. Be quiet. You can't help, little boy." And he is like, "Yeah, we know how they set the bomb." And first of all, they're looking at the photos that Elle took, but they can't see anyone in the photos who looks like they're getting off on the fire. Morgan does one of those brilliant camera tricks that I love, where he's walking up to the crime board and then it dissipates into him walking onto the campus. Absolutely. Elle tells us about the homicidal triad. If you're a crime buff, you might know about this. The homicidal triad is something to look out for in children, which can give you evidence of crimes they may commit down the road. One of them is bedwetting, but obviously that happens to a lot of kids for a lot of different reasons. It's the other two that worry me. They hurt animals and they start fires. Now, starting fires you could do accidentally just because you like to watch the fire. That's not. I like I like lighting candles and watching the flames. But it's the hurting animals one. That's the one you've really got to watch out for. The team are discussing the profile, saying that what the arsonist should be, according to decades of evidence. They should have an abusive father, trouble with the opposite sex. But something in the profile is off and they cannot figure it out. Gideon is walking out of one of the college buildings where he is apprehended by the least threatening person ever, who is riding a push bike with a helmet on. And look, I'm all for cycle safety. Wear the helmet, have a belt, wear reflective clothing. But he does look like a bit of a dweeb. And I think that they did that intentionally so that you'd think, "Ooh, something a bit off about this guy. Ooh, he looks like he wouldn't have very much luck with the opposite sex. Keep that in mind for later." This guy is like, he's also wearing a polo shirt and like short cargo shorts and has the socks rolled up, like full-on calf-length socks on full display above his trainers. I know that Gen Z is like trying to bring back the calf-length sock. As a millennial, I do not get it. But in 2005, you'd have been like, this guy is a dweeb. So, Gideon, this guy tries to go, "Oh, hey, you're a profiler. Like, you can just look at a crime scene and tell us what shampoo the criminal uses," and kind of in a mocking way, but in the same way that I imagine everyone has ever said, like when they've met someone from the BAU, like, "Oh yeah, sure." So then Gideon proceeds to absolutely destroy this guy by saying, "Your girlfriend thinks you're going to break up with her. You're adjusting your necklace. That tells me you're not used to wearing one. The Chinese symbol on it means forever yours. Essentially, your girlfriend wanted to mark you, like, as hers." It cuts to the chemistry class, where the chemistry students are offering their help with catching the arsonist, and Hotch goes to Reed, "Hey, you're nearer their age. Why don't you talk to them? Because you clearly relate to them." And Reed is looking at Hotch thinking, no one who I have ever come into contact with who is my age have I ever related to. And, you know, he's wearing a thrift store version of a business casual look. Absolutely no one in their early 20s is like, "Oh yeah, Reed, down with the kids." Reed begins to like awkwardly introduce himself and the team using far too much detail that isn't really important to the case, and Hotch thankfully cuts him off. But one thing that I think was really funny and that I messaged you earlier about is that Reed's like, originally it was called the Behavioural Science Unit or the BS Unit, and I thought, yeah, I think that might be how people talk about the BAU behind your backs, guys. Like, oh, you can look at a crime scene, figure out what shampoo someone uses, BS. Jeremy stands up, takes the light bulb from Reed, because it was a light bulb he was holding, not a test tube. He says, okay, you want to know how to make a bomb? You drill a hole in the side, you fill it with gasoline, boom, light on, dead. But where can you get this information? Is it something you need to be a chemistry student to know? No, apparently not. A girl on the back says you can build like Molotov cocktails, just using like 3 ingredients. They ask the students, do you think it's a chem major? And Jeremy holds the light bulb above his head and goes, you know what I think? I think it's a great idea to take the semester off. Which is really funny, but also did not help. Like, you are being interviewed by the FBI about a massive crime. One of your fellow students has died. If you wouldn't mind
Maybe let's not crack joke when you're going to be on the suspect list.
Yeah, I'll be so honest. If the FBI were asking me any sort of question, I would not be telling jokes. I would not be being funny. So Reed and Hotch are in the elevator to go downstairs with Jeremy. He uses a special key to make the elevator start using, because it doesn't work after 10 p.m. unless you have one of these special keys. Which I think is slightly a mistake. Like, if you're going to shut the elevators off, just tell people they can't be in the building after 10 p.m. Why have you got to do your chemistry work at 11 o'clock at night? Yeah. Go home. We cut back to the office of Supreme Genius, aka Penelope Garcia, who is on computers as JJ walks into the room, mocking the people who called into the tip line to say it's definitely a firefighter starting the fires because she's seen Backdraft too. Garcia plays back a message that came in on the tip line, but it's a computerized voice saying, I do this for Tara or Kara. And basically, they listen to this a lot. Like Gideon repeats it, has it repeated several times, and he also cannot determine whether it's like Tara or Kara or Terra. And Garcia says, I'll put it through some audio filters to clean it up. I'm not entirely sure you can do that, but as Garcia says, hey, you remember Star Trek where Spock asks someone to do this and that guy says, damn it, I'm a doctor, not a miracle worker. And Morgan says, hey, do you mean that you're telling me not to expect miracles? And she says, no, I'm telling you I'm not a doctor. So finally we have got Garcia, the miracle worker. Right. Okay, so I've got in my notes, oh my god, it wasn't Tara. The dean has just printed out a list of photos of all the women at the college with the first name Karen. Yeah. And just as an aside, I feel like Karen would have been quite an old name for people born between 1983 to 1987. Like, most people called Karen were born in like the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. It's not especially an 80s name. If they'd said something like Tiffany or Georgia or Amanda, those would be fairly common 80s names. Yeah. So Gideon is walking around the campus watching students as they get into their cars. Reed is sitting on the floor underneath a tree, and I'm just like, are you on a break, dude? Are you just enjoying the quietness of the quad? You are at work. Get up. Gideon tells Reed that the unsub is definitely not leaving because he's not done yet. Right. And Reed says, do we have to think outside the box, i.e. the standard profile of an arsonist? Sometimes you have to be creative to think of things that no one else thought of, and maybe that's what's wrong with the profile. Elle and Morgan are interviewing every Karen on campus, I assume asking, did you recently date someone who seemed unhinged? And I'll be honest, yeah, same. Just so you know, if anyone starts fires in my city, Sarah, it may be someone I know.
Oh, God.
Morgan says, what about if we just change the first question to, have you recently dated a homicidal maniac? And honestly, I'm not sure that would take the, I don't think that would have taken the cool down any shorter. Like, I think that a lot of people that age would profile as a homicidal maniac after being dumped. Anyway, Elle and Morgan are discussing why the footpath killer has a stutter, which is a bit odd considering you are currently working on a case. Stop trying to work out trivia from a closed case. Focus. Do your jobs. When I slack off at work, it's fine because no one is going to die if I write the wrong thing in a Facebook caption. Marketing is not that serious. FBI guys, hey, come on, take your job a bit more seriously. Gideon is wandering the halls of the chemistry department, staring up at what looks like something that is absolutely too scientific for me to comprehend. Suddenly, the dweeb from Campus Patrol turns up, looking menacingly through the glass of the door, and like bangs into the hallway like, oh, sorry, I didn't startle you, did I? Like, yeah, dude, you stared menacingly through a window at me and then like flung open the door like you were just about to come and kill me. Yeah, you startled me. So Gideon says to this guy, whose name I don't know if I caught, he was like, oh, hey, no more necklace. You broke up with the girlfriend? And the kid says, yeah, I did. I want to date this guy called Brian instead. And that's cool for him, and also maybe one of the best queer representations we get in the entire series. So it turns out this girl was a bit of a bitch because she was like, hey, homosexuality is a sin and you're going to hell. And rather than say, hey man, she's just an idiot, you're not going to hell for dating a guy, don't worry, he kind of just runs off and like literally bursts into the room with Morgan and Reed, and Garcia's on the phone to Morgan at the time being like, hey, I've run it through the voice filter again, and he doesn't say Karen, he says Karam. And at that same time, Gideon's like, Karam! It's Hebrew, apparently, according to Reed. I did not fact check. And it means God's burning anger. So they want to know, is the arsonist punishing people who have sinned? God is, a fire in a lot of religions. And then Gideon says, hey guys, don't rush to conclusions. It might not be anything to do with religion. And at this point, I would quit. I would be like, no, I'm sorry. You don't get to come in here, tell me that the arsonist rang the tip line telling you it was an obscure word from the Bible, and then be like, but hey, religion might not have anything to do with it. Don't worry. Re-watches the video from the start multiple times in a dark room by himself. He has not switched a light on, and I keep thinking this must be awful for his eyes. He then gets up, wipes everything off the whiteboard that Gideon had put up there without taking a note or a picture of it in case anyone wanted to reflect on those notes later. And Gideon just pops in the door to say, hey, don't think of the next move. Think 3 moves ahead. And again, I would quit. But Reed is just like, okay. And he watches the video again and again. And again. Then he zooms in and cleans up the doorknob in a way that would not work on any video you tried to zoom in on, and notes that it was 3 times the door handle was turned. Then he goes on a little investigation of previous fires and figures out that the unsub is setting fires because they have OCD. And just at this point, a little aside, OCD is a really wide-spanning disorder, and people with OCD are not, on the whole, violent, and it also doesn't mean cleans everything and tidies everything. We'll get on that at the end of the episode, but I just wanted to put that in now. So the unsub apparently does everything in freeze. The 3 turns of the doorknob. The class is on level 3. It's the 3rd period. Tuesday is the 3rd day of the week. Now, I think Tuesday is the 2nd day of the week, but I am apparently aware that some people view Sunday as the 1st day of the week.
And
Those people are wrong, but it's hardly the worst thing in this episode that someone has done because they think Tuesday is the 3rd day of the week. Reed uses the word scropholotomy, which is the religious obsessive fear of committing sin, which causes you so much anxiety you're forced to do something about it. Suddenly, Hotch knows who it is, and it's a girl. That's why the profile doesn't fit. Gideon orders campus security and the team to go find her while the dean gets all of the information. It's one of the girls from the original chemistry class, Clara, the one who said there were 1, 2, 3 ingredients to make a Molotov cocktail. Morgan and Elle, they're at Clara's apartment and it's covered, the wall is literally covered in pictures and religious writings and like, it's all handwritten as well. So I feel that this must have been like when you went back to our flat in 3rd year after the Easter holidays. We had written all of these mind maps all over and they were just stuck on every wall and surface in our living room. And I'm sure that that was what you thought when you went in there.
It's a bit random, shall I say.
I was studying and I didn't know you were coming back that day.
Yes.
But it did look unhinged, I will admit that, because I'm pretty sure you rang me and were like, hey, what the hell is this?
Everything okay?
I was away for a week and you have covered our entire living room in mind maps of your classwork. Like,
Well, if that works for you, that works for you.
It didn't work great. They find out that Clara had survived a fire at number 333. That was the number of her house. And her mother was like, hey, my daughter was tested by God. So the team thinks that she is testing other people with fire when she sees 3 threes, 3rd period, Tuesday, 3rd floor. They want to know where she's next going to plan a fire.
Morgan says no one writes in their day planner, set next fire here. Then they walk into the next room
and find about 30 homemade bombs. By the way, this entire room is like covered in candles that are lit. So I assume that Clara left it like that when she left her apartment. Like, don't leave all these candles on if you've got homemade bombs that you're planning to use later. What are you going to do now? You're going to be like, well, my apartment blew up and all those bombs have gone. That was a waste of time making them, wasn't it? Not that I'm trying to give anyone advice on how to commit arson. Ideally, I'd like you to not commit arson. Gideon then orders people to go into buildings across campus and pull the fire alarm to evacuate everyone. We cut to Jeremy and 2 other members of the chemistry class who are walking along the corridor. Despite earlier telling the profilers, I think I'm going to take the next semester off, he's telling his mum he can't come home and escape the arsonist because he has a project to do. I feel that this guy is way more committed to his classwork than I would have been, because if there was an arsonist on our campus and my mum had rung me saying leave, I would have been like, yeah, sure. 2005, Jeremy, you can submit that assignment from home. Or you could always just, ask for an extension because there's someone setting fires across the campus. Most of the student body have already left. So he says to his mum, oh, I'm just going into an elevator. I'll probably cut off then. But there's 3 of them, Jeremy and 2 girls. They get to floor 3 in the elevator, and then it just stops. The lights start to flicker and they are trapped. The fire alarm is going off everywhere across campus. People are running out, but it looks like the unsub has altered something, so the elevator looks like it's empty. But these 3 are going to die because no one thinks anyone is in the elevators. They try the emergency button, but nothing works. One of the girls suggests prying the doors open, but that's not going to work. She says, hey, why don't we call for help? And I would like to say, because no one can hear you, there's an alarm going off. People are running out of the building. Hotch suggests to Gideon that he won't be able to reason with Clara when he finds her. Clara is a logical person, but the OCD has taken over her brain, so she thinks it's logical to set fires. She's not doing it because she wants to. She's doing it because she has to. You can't make her stop. Back to the elevator. Our trio are trying to pry the doors apart, and they make it about a foot, and then they start calling for help because you cannot open the second doors for the elevator. The doors are pried open from the other side, and our trio look up to see Clara. She says, I'm going to help you, and they're like, no, get the elevator key, for God's sake. She approaches a hanging light bulb with what looks like her flip-flops in her hand, and tells the trio again that she is there to help them. God is testing them, and she pulls out the accelerant bottles, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, which fucking creepy, then begins spraying them down with the gasoline, accelerant, whatever. And basically, maybe you should have shut the doors at some point, but I'm not into blaming these guys, it's not their fault. She's lit the match, and then it cuts back to the team. Apparently, Clara was failing out of school, which was the stressor. And everyone's like, hey, we've checked all the 3rd floors. But Reed goes, the 3rd floor of the science building is under construction. Is where she is holding the flame and just about to set light to people. Hotch appears around the corner before you can even really expect him to have got there. He says to her, try to resist, and he's reaching for his gun. Now, I think that I have seen before in a criminal series where someone got out a gun, but it was like, if you fire it, there's so much gasoline here, it would still have started a fire. So I'm not entirely sure what he's doing. She goes to drop the lit match or torch into the elevator, and Hotch shoots her in the leg. Gideon has to run across to stop the lit torch rolling into the elevator anyway. And then he says to Hotch, hey, I thought you said not to reason with her. And we don't find out why that happened. Cuts to the jet. Elle has figured out why the footpath killer stuttered. Tells Gideon that the reason he said he knew why the footpath killer stuttered is because he was trying to stall the killer. And then Elle asks what really happened at the gas station. And Gideon says, you're right, I don't know what causes a stutter, but I do know how to provoke one. Cuts back to the gas station. The killer has a gun to literally the back of Gideon's neck. Gideon is unlocking the door to go into what must be a storeroom where he is being held earlier in the episode. Gideon says to the killer, we only found 6 bodies, but there's a lot more than 6 photos here. And the killer says, are you impressed? No. Gideon says, yeah, I didn't know you could read. Again, I wouldn't rile up someone who was holding a gun on me, but Gideon seems to be really well versed in it. He's done it this episode, he did it last episode. And then he's like, yeah, also, you're stupid and you're a chronic bedwetter. And this crazed killer, literally, his eyes are bulging at this point. He's got a gun literally on Gideon's neck. And Gideon is still, like, provoking him. And this guy's unable to get his words out because of the stutter. Gideon is laughing at him. And at this point, because the guy can't get his words out, he keeps going, what was that? What was that? Try again. And suddenly Gideon lunges for the gun, hits him with the gun and shoots him. Now, I didn't like seeing Gideon goad this person into making their speech impediment worse. This guy is a serial killer, so I'd feel a lot more sorry for him if he wasn't. But it is just kind of hard to watch, especially if you know people who have had speech impediments like that, because you know how much it pains them. But you know what? To hand it to Gideon, he has got the gun now, and the footpath killer is not going to kill him. Cut to the jet, and Gideon and Reed are playing chess. Yet another one of those nice camera angles again, where Gideon can see through moves in the future by the pawns actually moving in front of you on the camera. And then he checkmates Reed and says, "Don't worry, you're getting there." And that is the end of the episode recap. So what causes it? Gideon doesn't know. None of the team have figured it out. But according to my friend Mel, who is a speech and language therapist, no one really knows what causes a stutter. It's a combination of genetic and environmental factors, and there are slight differences in brain structure in people who stammer. So what did you think of the episode, Sarah?
After watching it, you realise that long before they figured out who the unsub was, there was like hints of the three throughout it. Yeah,
that was good.
Especially at the beginning where he finished the chess in 3 moves.
Exactly.
And one thing I really want to talk about, scene when I think they're on the jet. And it's just before they go to the college campus.
Mm-hmm.
And the transition shot from the brochure of the college into where the college is.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah, I know. They are so good. I really like those. And it really kind of sets Criminal Minds apart from other kind of police procedurals. Because often with police procedurals, you don't get that sort of artistry almost.
You'd expect that these days, but in 2005, that's out there. It's legend.
Yeah. I actually quite like the bit where at the beginning Gideon's saying, "Hey guys, it's important not to think about precedent." It's like, you were led down the wrong direction all the time because you thought it was a man. And it was a woman.
Ooh.
Yeah. See, this is feminism. Women can also be murderers.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. I'm not entirely sure that's the message of this podcast that I'd like you to take away. It's not that women can be murderers too.
No.
But, don't disregard that, If you're looking for a murderer, it might be a woman. So Clara was played by Jennifer Hall, and you might have seen her in The Night Shift, which I did see. But it doesn't look like she's done a lot. Not to be like, oh, she doesn't look like she's done a lot. And then I'm looking at the names of the rest of the cast, and the guest cast, and no, I don't really notice them. But I am gonna look up oh my goodness, the guy who was breaking up with his girlfriend. He doesn't even have a name. They've literally called him campus patroller.
Oh, bless him.
Oh, this is not the queer representation that we needed.
Oh, they could have given him a name.
They could have done, couldn't they?
How about we name him?
Oh, God.
Have you got any idea?
Can we name him?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to name him... What do you think? Daniel? Nicholas?
I was thinking Jack.
Okay, cool. Now, our episode MVP. As you know, if you listen to the first episode, each episode of the podcast, we're going to do an episode MVP. And to tell you who we think that is, we're going to use Morgan's terms of endearment, which are baby girl and pretty boy. We haven't spoken about this, Sarah, but I think that my baby girl for the episode is JJ, who is always busy and does not have time to constantly play chess or talk about unrelated crimes while at her work.
Yeah, she's got more important things to do.
Yeah, she's too busy to be playing chess on company time, and she's not there going, hey, let's have a gossip. She's like, no, I am here to work, and I want to save lives, so I'm not just going to be like playing chess in the bullpen when I could be doing something useful. Did you have anyone else? Oh, should I? Oh no, maybe I should have. We'll have a bonus one so that I can say pretty boy goes to the campus patroller who doesn't have a name, but we've named him Jack, and Jack is honestly one of the best queer representations we'll ever get on Criminal Minds.
We love him.
It does not get fabulously better. I'm sorry. As a queer person, it pains me too. So yeah, we'll give pretty boy to campus patroller.
Yay!
Yeah. So, shall we go into the true crime recap, Sarah?
We shall. Emma, it's time to deliver the profile.
Okay, so I couldn't find anything that hit all 3 points. OCD, religion, and female arsonists. But I do want to highlight the case of Mary Braun, a Canadian woman who set fire to a museum in 1983 because God commanded her to do so. In the UPI article, which I'll leave linked in the podcast notes, it doesn't mention her having OCD, but this is from 1983, and knowledge of things like mental health was a lot worse in 1983 than it is in 2025. You'd be shocked to learn that, I know. So Braun is a member of a Ducador sect. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I do apologise. But she appeared naked in court due to a religious belief that nudity is the purest state. She lay down on a bench for an hour, staring at the jurors who were avoiding their eyes. As I would do if someone was just completely naked and lying down on a bench in front of me. Now, the judge could have charged her with contempt of court for her nudity, but didn't because it was a religious practice, which I do have to say I find very funny because, hey, I'm all for people being able to practice their religion in any way that they choose, but why do you have to be naked? Like, you still have to obey the rules of the country you're in. So you still can't be like, okay, public nudity is now fine. Or maybe public nudity wasn't outlawed in Canada in 1983. One of the two. But apparently members of the sect had appeared before the judge on what seems like a semi-regular basis, so he was kind of used to the I'm going to appear naked in court thing. I don't think I'd ever get used to that, if I'm honest. So the judge, who is George Murray, he said, "It appears you're still a member of a misguided sect that has been plaguing the Kootenays, a region of British Columbia, for many years." Which is a bit rude, because what makes her religion misguided and others not? Like, I am an atheist, I will put that out there, but so all religion practices seem a bit funny to me. So I'm not entirely sure that it's fair to be like, well, you are clearly misguided, but the other people with the other religions, they are right. So I thought that was a bit rude. To give you some background, the Ducador sect emigrated from Russia to Canada in the early 20th century to escape religious persecution, with thanks to the royalties from a Tolstoy novel. which is, quite unexpected that I found that. They are mostly vegetarian teetotalers, so same. They descend from Russians that burnt their weapons and refused to fight in a war in 1895, leading to their suppression and exile from Russia. So, vegetarian, teetotaling, pacifist? Actually, you know what? They do not sound that insane. Oh, wait, no, sorry. We are talking about someone who set fire to something. Never mind. We'll go back to me thinking, hey, let's not validate the criminals. Braun was only wearing a scarf, socks and shoes when she set fire to the museum, and although the Royal Canadian Mounted Police asked her to put clothes on, she refused, saying God wanted her to remain naked and that she should have burned all of the building. This is October in Vancouver, so I'm guessing she might have needed the fire to make up for the lack of clothes keeping her warm. She said the fire was symbolic of purification and sent by Jesus. I do want to say that maybe Jesus could start his own fires if he wanted to. He doesn't need you to light anything on fire. Sometimes you just got to be like, hey, you've got the power to set things on fire. You do it if you want it done so badly. Luckily, she called the fire department shortly after setting the fire, so she caused little damage but was still sentenced to 4 years in prison. That is not the end of her story. In 2001, at age 81, she was again convicted of arson after causing $150,000 of damage to a Slakirk College building and sentenced to 6 years in prison. She had previously lit a number of small fires in her courtroom before being sentenced. So, yeah, that's what I found on people setting fires because God told them to. But I do also want to highlight a article from CNN that I read. It's about religious OCD. It focuses on the story of Jessica Trigg. She says that when she was 12, her hands were red and raw from washing them so much. She'd scrub half an hour before dinner, and when she was done, she would hold her hands up like a surgeon until the family sat down to eat. Her hand-washing compulsions began at the same time she was studying for her bat mitzvah, and she was so worried about being exposed to pork fumes that she cleaned her shoes and barrettes in a washing machine. So she says that she tended to obsess about the biblical definition of cleanliness. It made things awkward for her family because she would concentrate so hard on praying for forgiveness that if anyone tried to interrupt her, she wouldn't respond. This is the scrupulosity thing that was mentioned in the episode. The fear of sin or punishment from deities, part of an obsessive compulsive disorder. So obsessive compulsive disorder, or OCD, includes unwanted thoughts, obsessions, and accompanying behaviours called compulsions that the patients use to reduce anxiety. So you might think about the fact that you aren't sure you've shut your door. So even though you'd be late to work, you go back to check that the door is shut. It's stuff like that. So the obsession is, I've left the door open. I've left the door open. Someone's going to get into my house. They're going to rob me. My cats are going to go missing. And then it's the compulsions. You need to check it. And I am using this example because it happened to me over the weekend where I was like, I don't know if I'd shut the door when I left the house. But I was already on a coach to London at that point. So I had to check in my Ring doorbell to look at the house across the street and check in their window frame whether it looked like the door was definitely closed. And I also rang a neighbour in the street to be like, my door open, I was just wondering if you could check. So I ruined two people's Saturday morning because I was thinking about that. People with scrupulosity often describe that they think their thoughts are morally equivalent to actions. Between 5 and 33% of OCD patients have religious obsessions. Scientists are not sure what causes OCD, but they believe it's a combination of genetic and environmental factors. And the numbers of people with the religious obsessions goes up higher in countries where religion is more widespread. For instance, 50% of OCD patients in Saudi Arabia and 60% of those in Egypt said they had religious obsessions, according to studies in the 90s. A small amount of people with scrupulosity aren't religious and have a fear of moral transgression or inadvertently offending others weighs on their conscience. And I wish I hadn't read that, because now I'm going, wait a second, I do this all the time. So anyway, they don't believe that religion causes people to develop OCD, but religion may influence whether someone with OCD experiences obsession and compulsions are related to religion. Most people who are religious do not have scrupulosity, and the vast majority of people with OCD or scrupulosity are not violent. They are suffering from a serious mental health condition, and it's important to give them grace and help and not to stigmatize them, which is what Okay, hello from future Emma. Hi.
Sarah.
And future Sarah, yes. You're probably thinking, did they forget someone when they were talking about the true crime? And yes, we did. It was a glaring error, and honestly, we felt a bit embarrassed that we had not done it.
Sorry.
Yeah. So, we did not do a true crime for the footpath killer. And honestly, that was a much bigger element of true crime than the bits that we did cover. So we're sorry about that. We're correcting it now. And it's at least 4 days before the episode comes out. So it's fine. It's fine. Okay, so I'm going to tell you the story of David Carpenter, also known as the Trailside Killer. And it appears that he is one of the many serial killers operating in California in the 1970s. So David Carpenter was born in 1930, and he raped, tortured, and murdered various people in the San Francisco Bay Area between 1979 and 1981. He was then sentenced to death for 7 murders, but is believed to be responsible for much more. So, his early life. Carpenter suffered physical abuse and also, I think, a little bit of, well, quite a lot of mental abuse as well from his alcoholic father, Elwood, and they say domineering mother, Frances, but I think that it goes beyond domineering, really.
Yeah.
So they were abusing him because they said that he persistently wet the bed and he was cruel to animals. And I just want to say, I don't know that, I think this might have been a self-fulfilling prophecy, because I don't know that abuse actually helps people to overcome bedwetting or to not be cruel to animals.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense, does it? Because
no.
We often hear that abused children do suffer with bedwetting, and much more seriously, we also hear that they take out their anger, their abuse, on creatures smaller than them, such as animals and such as younger children.
Yeah.
Now, he did not have a good early life.
No.
None of what he went through excuses what happened later and the crimes he committed later. But he did suffer a lot of abuse. So his mum banned him from playing with the kids in their neighborhood. And he had a stutter, and his teachers were like, oh, you should put him in speech therapy. And instead, his mother was like, no. And I think the impression that she gave was that she could beat it out of him. You know how a stutter improves when you're physically abused?
Yeah.
That's a real thing that happens. Oh,
She getting Mother of the Year award, is she?
No, she also forced him to learn the violin and take ballet lessons. And you're looking at this from a 2025 perspective where you're like, oh, so she wanted him to have a couple of skills. This was the 50s, or actually maybe even the 40s at this point. Little boys taking ballet and even learning to play the violin didn't exactly thrill people, and really gave the neighborhood kids more of an excuse to bully him. You know, there's the kid that does ballet and is mean to animals and also isn't playing with us. Like, kids don't know why people aren't allowed to play with them. No. So they probably just made up their own stories. Yeah. Anyway, so the physical abuse actually got so bad at some points that David would have to take time off of school to allow bruises to heal, so that the teachers wouldn't be, interfering.
Yeah.
And that's never good, is it? Anyway, as I was saying, if you are abused especially when you're a child, you can take out abuse on other people as well. He bit a fellow student at his school, but that is just the beginning. Around the time that he reached adolescence, the anger developed into a sort of sexual nature. And he then started to abuse other children. Yeah, I didn't say this was going to be an easy one. Yeah. Sorry. Beginning when he was 15, he molested several children, including 2 of his cousins. And this is something that really got me earlier when I was listening to a podcast about it. He was 17, right? Yeah. And he was arrested on allegations that he sexually assaulted a 3-year-old. Ooh. And it just, it made me feel so sick, and I'm so glad that they did arrest him. Of course, his mother was just, she was just like, as soon as he was able to walk, he was getting into trouble. All right. And you gave no help. No. So I think this is kind of your fault as well. Yeah. And slightly later, when he was 20, for the attack on the 3-year-old, he was put in the custody of the California Youth Authority and spent several years at Napa State Hospital. But by the time he was 20, he had been released and then rearrested for raping a 17-year-old. So, to be clear, he spent less than 2 years at a state hospital for sexually assaulting a 3-year-old, and then he was let out and he raped a 17-year-old. I'm going to say not a good plan to let him out.
Definitely not rehabilitated.
Yeah. So then he became employed as a purser, which I don't really know what that is, but it's on a naval ship, SS Fleetwood.
Yeah.
Purser, I think, might actually be someone who's in control of the money. I'm not sure. It's not particularly important. But in 1955, he married Ellen Cook, and they had 3 children before their divorce in 1961. Can you imagine why they divorced, Sarah?
Probably because he was unfaithful, I'm guessing.
His ex-wife described him as domineering, which I think is probably code for abusive.
Yeah.
And he said, my wife wasn't interested in anything but local neighborhood gossip. Oh, really, Carpenter? What, do tell me the topics you decided to engage her on.
Yeah.
Please wow me with the sort of, amazing viewpoints on life and culture that can come from someone who continually gets arrested for molesting children.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just that she was an adult woman that you didn't like. Oh, sorry, I got really annoyed with him. I mean, I don't know what I'm saying, sorry. He was an asshole. So we are now at 1960. He's 30 years old, and he meets this woman called Lois DeAndre. Yes, I'm pretty sure I'm saying that right. So he's met her at his post office job in San Francisco. And then, apparently with no kind of warning that he was anything like this before, on July 11th of 1960, aimed with a knife and a hammer, he was walking around San Francisco, or maybe driving. It says prowling in my notes, but so he's going around there. She's just kind of looking around, seeing if there's anyone in the streets, and he's got this knife and hammer. He approaches her, this woman he knows from work, and without warning, without saying like anything, he just slashes her hands with a knife, and then she falls to the ground, and he hits her with a hammer repeatedly. Thank God there was a military officer who came upon them. His name was Jewel Hicks, and he thankfully shot Carpenter, and this woman was able to survive, which was very good.
Yeah.
This is the stupidest bit, right? Okay. So he's arrested for assault with a deadly weapon, although I would consider it attempted murder.
Yeah.
He pled guilty. He got 14 years in prison, right? That seems good. Get him away from people before he hurts more of them. Yeah. He claimed that his trigger for the attack was the 1960 film Psycho. What? Sorry? If you are watching a film that is released at the cinema, and you are triggered into committing murder, that's still your fault.
Yeah.
There are hundreds of thousands of people who have seen the movie Psycho and have not murdered anyone.
Yep.
Anyway, during his imprisonment, he managed to earn his high school diploma.
Aww.
And then they released him in 1969, which you may realise is only 9 years and not 14. And then he married a second woman. Her name is Helen. And I'm just thinking, how does he keep, because I know that there wasn't like a sex offender registry that you could like go to your local police station and just check, hey, is my boyfriend on the sex offender registry?
Yeah.
But surely this is a very prominent attack. Surely there's enough coverage. So I'm sure, Sarah, that you're thinking, well, at least he's married now and he probably won't do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not that hopeful, are you?
Nope.
So between January and February of 1970, which is less than a year after he's been released and gotten married, he goes on a crime spree throughout the Bay Area. So first of all, he rear-ends this woman. He's driving the car, he crashes into her. They both get out of their car. There's what's described as a heated exchange, but I would argue it's probably that woman going, why the hell did you just slam into me? And then he shoved her to the ground, raped her, and then stabbed her with a spatula.
And this was in the middle of the road?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it could have been like, you know, off. It could have been like no one.
Side street,
yeah, like it's late at night. This is like just a road to and from places. So, that was just an insane and upsetting thing. And then there was a second attack. Reminder: this is all taking place in less than a month. He has a hunting knife and he attacks a 19-year-old in Boulder Creek. And then on February 3rd, he breaks into the home of a 45-year-old called Lucille Davis. And he ties her up, demands her car keys, and then stole her vehicle and drove to Angel's Camp. At Angel's Camp, however, he confronted a 21-year-old mother and forced her to drive him to Oakdale while her 16-month-old sat in the back seat. Like, that's fucking terrifying, isn't it? Thankfully, when he got to Oakdale, he said, get out of the car, take your baby. And then he drove off with her car. But I'm just thinking, why didn't he just take her car from Angel's Camp? Why didn't he make her drive him to Oakdale? Anyway, thank God he was detained on February 4th, and the investigator at the time, James Marston, Carpenter's wife gave him permission to search the vehicle, and that had the knife used in the second attack in the vehicle. Thank God the wife was like, yeah, sure, check the vehicle. Like, even if she was like, yeah, you're not going to find anything, at least it was like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
Right, so yeah. So it does say in my notes that around the same time the Zodiac Killer was active in the San Francisco Bay Area. And so you might think, oh, were people thinking that he might be the Zodiac Killer? No. But he began to refer to himself as Zodiac while in prison to the other inmates. Yeah, a weird thing to do, especially as it was so easy to disprove he was literally in prison during 3 of the murders.
Yeah. Like,
oh really? You're escaping prison to go murder people and then coming back, are you?
Yes, we be.
Now, unfortunately, that was a little bit of foreshadowing there, Sarah, because on April 26th of 1970, he and 5 other inmates who were held at the county jail, they cut their way through cell bars and escaped. And I'm thinking, how easy is it to break out of prison? How are you cutting through metal bars?
And you've got tools in order to cut the metal bars.
Yeah, like they can bake a file and a cake, but those take ages to
Yeah.
No one's checking. That's what you're telling me. No one's checking.
Probably.
Anyway, so I've got good news for you. He was captured 2 weeks later and sentenced to 5 years to life imprisonment for auto theft and escape charges, and 5 to 25 years for kidnapping. And I've got to be honest with you. At this point, I'd be like, maybe you don't let him out again.
Yeah.
It's not going super well.
Yeah.
Every time you let him out, he seems to attack someone else.
Mm.
And these are violent crimes. It's not like he's just, shoplifting or something.
Yeah.
So anyway, he was returned to prison, thank fucking God. He was sent to Folsom State Prison, which is the one that Johnny Cash mentions, isn't it?
I think so. I've heard it before, yeah.
Yeah. He was then moved to San Quentin State Prison, then to the California Medical Facility, where a psychiatric report identified him as having antisocial personality disorder.
No shit, I could have told you that.
Yeah. And again, that still doesn't excuse it.
No.
Lots of people have antisocial personality disorder. They don't kill.
Yeah.
And then the United States Parole Commission, they determined that he was manipulative and a pathological liar.
Mm.
To which I say, yeah, of course. So, don't let him out again? Do you think that's where it ends, Sarah? Do you think that they've just gone, no, we're going to again?
I'm guessing no.
Oh. Yeah. Unfortunate. So, he was released on parole in 1977, which again is a very short amount of time for the crimes that he's committed.
Yeah.
At this time, he befriended a fellow inmate called Shane Mitchell Williams. He was just in for bank robberies, which is very serious, but isn't,
Yeah.
there's violence. He was sent to a halfway house for 60 days and then moved back in with his parents in San Francisco. And I'm like, I think that's a bad idea. I mean, what's going to happen now?
It's not going to end well. It's not going to end.
Yeah. Anyway, he started attending a vocational school to learn offset printing. I didn't bother to look up what that was. If anyone knows, they can leave it in the comments.
Yeah.
And then after several months of training, he was hired to lecture the course. Sorry, what? You know that he came from the prison, right? That you perhaps shouldn't give him a position of power over, students, right? Shane Williams is released. He and his wife Karen make trips to San Francisco to visit Carpenter and go to some punk clubs. All right. And then Williams is like, do you know what? I would like to commit some more robberies, which, first of all, I don't know that you're actually allowed to associate with people you met in prison.
Yeah.
Especially not when you are still on parole.
Obviously, the laws are a bit lax back then.
Yeah. So anyway, Carpenter said, oh, you know what would make that much easier to get away with those robberies? Using a gun.
Yeah.
So he loaned them a gun, one that he used in several of the murders.
Big mistake.
Yeah.
Tie you to the other ones, you dumb shit.
And you might be thinking, murders? You haven't mentioned murders yet, Emma.
No.
I'm just about to. So he loans them this gun that he's used to commit murders. And they go around committing some robberies. Anyway, they also get caught for a botched robbery. And they were subsequently connected to Carpenter because they were using the gun that he used to murder people.
Oh, you dumb shit.
Yeah, I don't know where I put my little signs. Fucking idiots.
You're dumb. Criminals are dumb.
Right, okay. So we're on to the murders. So he was convicted of 7 murders between October 1980 and May 1981, which is less than a year. That's like one person a month.
Yeah.
And he was linked with DNA, but not charged with, I assume, because they linked it after he was already in prison, because DNA was not that great in the 80s.
Yeah.
And so he's charged with he's charged with these 7 murders. One murder he's linked with via DNA but not charged with, and 2 other murders don't have enough physical evidence, but the police believe that it's definitely him. And there's also a further murder, it said suspected homicide of a teenage girl. So do you want to know how this convicted assaulter managed to get hold of a gun?
Go on. Surprise me.
Well, initially, he was committing crimes just using knives. And then he duped a female friend into buying him a gun. I'm sorry, what? How do you dupe someone into buying you a gun?
Yeah.
Like, because wouldn't she say, why can't you buy one yourself? Because what is he saying there? Like, oh, well, yeah, but I used to violently assault people and I've been to prison a couple of times. I suppose they're worried that if I get a gun, I would use it to abuse another person. But pinky swear I won't. So initially, the investigators of these murders, and they initially thought that he was in his 20s or 30s at the time, although he was 50. So they were looking for a very different person. So that's not exactly a promising start.
You could say they were looking for a man in his 30s.
Oh my goodness.
So he was 50s.
Yes, they were looking for a man in his 30s, but they were fucking wrong.
Yeah.
So then he became known as the Trailside Killer, which is where you get the name of the footpath killer, after the murders stretched out into Santa Cruz County.
Nice.
And thankfully, at this point, they got a more accurate depiction of the killer as a balding man in his 50s.
Nice.
And it's like, thank God. So I'm going to tell you now the names of the victims and a brief description of what happened to them, but I won't go into detail.
Okay.
August 20th, 1979, he murders 44-year-old Etta Kane. She was a bank employee, an experienced hiker. She was seen the day before by her husband, and then it is believed that Carpenter shot her once in the head with a .44 caliber gun, and days before the murder, one of Carpenter's friends reported that their .44 caliber gun was missing. So it is likely that he stole their gun and used it to kill Etta, who was also found naked. But as the weapon has never been located, they cannot 100% say it was Carpenter, but he is the prime suspect.
Yeah.
2 months later, Carpenter murdered 23-year-old Mary Bennett. She was a graduate of Montana State University. She was jogging at Land's End, and he dragged her into some bushes, attempted to rape her, And then during a struggle, she managed to dislocate one of Carpenter's thumbs. So she is really, really a badass. So he then stabbed her 25 times across her body, specifically focusing on her neck, and there were also some to the breast and groin. And several residents are reported to have actually heard this, because it wasn't like on a really remote area.
Yeah.
But they didn't investigate because they thought a police car was seen in the area. And it's like, you didn't call the police because you thought there was already a police car there.
Yeah.
All right, maybe just call the police in case.
Yeah.
And then Carpenter showed up at an emergency room after the murder and claimed his thumb had been bitten by a dog. Now, I don't know that dogs can dislocate your thumb when they bite you, specifically not without canine bite marks.
Yeah.
Dogs' teeth are different to humans.
Yeah.
They leave distinctive patterns. So I don't know why no one flagged that. Bennett's body was found at about 4:30 on that day by hitchhikers who followed her blood trail from the access road. Carpenter was named as the suspect after he was arrested in 1981, but not charged because of lack of evidence. However, in 2010, they established the DNA match. In 1980, Carpenter murdered 23-year-old Barbara Schwartz. She was stabbed to death on a hiking trail, and her body was found several days later, along with the butcher knife that was used to murder her. The sheriff at the time, Al Howenstein, urged local women not to hike alone.
Mm.
So, do you want to know about the woman that bought him the gun?
Yes.
She was a former prison pen pal of his. Molly Pernell was writing to him in prison, and then when he got out, decided to be friends with him. And he was like, hey, I've got this .38 caliber revolver it's $230. Can you buy it for me? It's apparently that he asked her as a favor.
Yeah.
And right. So you're thinking, what possible motive could he have given?
Yeah.
He told her he wanted to use it to join the mafia. What? To be clear, you heard that and you went, sure. She was hesitant at first, and then he said, if the police ever come looking, just say I stole it from you. What? So, 9 days after getting this gun, Carpenter confronted 19-year-old Richard Stowers and 18-year-old Cynthia Morland, who were engaged. They were walking along the Sky Camp Trail at the Point Reyes National Seashore Park. He forced them to their knees and shot them execution style. Stowers was in the US Coast Guard, and so he had gone missing. Law enforcement was like, don't worry, they've definitely eloped. And, we can't find his car. And someone claimed to have seen Cynthia 3 days after the disappearance. So they labelled Stowers a deserter. So to be clear, you thought that he'd gone through the hassle of getting engaged and enlisting in the Coast Guard and then decided to elope and just skip town. 3 days later, on October 14th, Carpenter was in the state park where he accosted, raped, and shot 26-year-old Anne Alderson, who worked at the nearby Cushing Memorial Amphitheatre. She was reported missing by her father, Robert, and the next day the search party discovered her body roughly 1/4 mile east of the amphitheatre. She had only returned to the Bay Area several months before this because she had been volunteering with the Peace Corps in Colombia. With Anne's death, the state park shut down temporarily hiking in that area. So on November 28th, which is a month later, Diane O'Connell, who was originally from Queens, New York, she went missing while hiking near Point Reyes National Seashore, which is where the couple went missing and were murdered earlier. Her body was discovered the next day. She was nude and had been shot. Shortly after they found Diane's body, they also found the bodies of Stowers and Morland. By early December, the 6 murders had all been linked together, and they knew they were looking for the one person. They described him as a lustful offender who thrived on inflicting psychological torture on his victims and enjoyed when they pled for mercy. The profile indicated that the offender was a misogynist. Yeah.
No shit.
No shit. They said that he committed murder to achieve psychological relief, but it was never enough to fully satisfy him. They said that he would be easily thrown into anger and that he would experience both physical and mental deterioration, which may lead to him experiencing anxiety attacks and hot flashes. Couldn't care less. Oh no, have you murdered a lot of people? Are you having anxiety over that? Maybe you shouldn't have murdered someone then.
Yep.
Sorry, really great cure. I normally am not one to be like, well, I know what would cure your anxiety. But, like, stop killing. You'd probably be less anxious.
Oh.
So an unnamed man claiming to be the killer made 3 calls to the sheriff's office before calling in to local TV stations. He didn't like the psychological profile and said he was not the spoiled child they made him out to be. The man then made 14 more phone calls over the next few days, but this suddenly stopped on December 6th. I'll be honest, it doesn't say that they proved it to be Carpenter, and I don't think it was. I think it was just an asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in 81, he drove 90 miles to Santa Cruz County to stake out the Henry Cowell Redwoods State Park. He used the observation deck to scout out potential victims. And then he spotted a couple who were both 20 years old, Ellen Hansen and Steve Hartle. They were both students at the University of California, Davis, and they were walking on a secluded trail. Armed with his gun, he stopped them at gunpoint and ordered them to follow him, and then told Ellen that he was going to rape her. She told him no, and he walked both of them further down the trail before opening fire. Ellen was shot multiple times in the head and killed while Hartle was knocked unconscious, having been shot in the neck. He later awoke and managed to seek help from nearby hikers, but his injury did leave him with severe nerve damage to his vocal cords and his eye, but it does say that he made a full recovery.
Yeah.
On May 2nd, 1981, Carpenter murdered his final victim, 20-year-old Heather Skaggs of San Jose. She worked as an assistant printer at the same trade school where Carpenter was working. you know, as a lecturer. Somehow. He invited Skaggs to visit him in Santa Cruz, saying that he wanted to sell her a used car. Why he could not just bring the used car to the trade school is unclear. She told her mum and her boyfriend that she was meeting up with Carpenter. Thank God, because her boyfriend said her boyfriend was actually aware of the murders, and he was like, please don't go off with this random guy you know from work. But she obviously thought it was fine, because I would also think it was fine. I wouldn't believe that someone I worked with could be this brutal murderer. Later in the day, when Carpenter was driving her up to Big Basin State Park, he brandished his gun and forced her to strip. He raped her and then shot her once in the head, killing her. Her body was not found for 3 weeks, and it was hikers going along the Basin State Park. Her identity was confirmed 2 days later through dental records. So we're on to the manhunt. Now, thank God we had Hartle, who survived, because he was the only one who had survived and was able to tell them what the killer looked like. A thin, balding man in his early 50s, between 5'10" and 6 foot, wearing a baseball cap, a yellow and orange windbreaker with the name Bud on the front patch, and horn-rimmed glasses. Another witness, the Fresno resident Leyland Fritz, came forward and said he saw the same man on the trail and was able to describe the man's car. So that is at least good. They're on the right tracks now, as opposed to, you know, a 20-year-old. Police formed a tip line so that anyone with any more information could ring in, and they offered a $25,000 reward, which is $89,000 today, for anyone with critical information about the killer's identity. And park rangers throughout the entire of Northern California were putting up warning signs to warn hikers to proceed with caution when hiking alone. Thankfully, on April 4th, 1981, 69-year-old Ben Lormond resident Roberta Patterson said she recognized the sketch of the killer and rang the tip line to tell law enforcement, I think that looks like David Carpenter. So, and this is quite an amazing story, because she had met him in 1955 when he was working as the purser on that ship. And that, again, a really good memory to remember someone that's like 26 years later.
Yeah.
But the reason for this is because he was exhibiting bizarre behavior to her 14-year-old daughter at the time. And she learned his name when he signed it in her autograph book. And she said she wasn't surprised when he was later mentioned in the newspaper for the 1960 and the 1970 assault convictions. And at this point, I'm like, what the fuck? So I'm sorry, this one woman, Roberta Patterson, she's managed to keep a track on this guy, and everyone else was just like, oh, well, best hire him. Didn't he come from the prison? Yeah, I'm sure it's not important.
It's fucked up.
Basically, I think we might want to ask Roberta Patterson if she's ever considered law enforcement as a career.
Yeah.
Because that memory and that kind of ability to track someone, I want her on the case now.
Yeah.
So it was also put together that he knew Heather Skaggs, they worked together, and her boyfriend and her mum were like, yeah, she went up to buy a used car off him. So then investigators put him under surveillance and they surveilled his home. They noticed that he drove a red Fiat car similar to the one described by the witness who had seen him leaving the trail.
Yeah.
In separate police lineups, Hartle, Fritz, and several other people identified Carpenter with little hesitation. He was thankfully arrested on May 14th, and he was ordered to be held without bail.
Yeah.
Thank fucking God, finally, someone's
finally got brains.
They issued a search warrant for his home. They seized a Sierra Club book, which contained maps of various California hiking trails. I think Sierra Club is like almost like the AA, where they would have like maps.
Oh, yeah.
And he would have paper clips that conveniently marked pages containing areas where the murders had occurred. Now, again, I don't like to give advice to murderers, but I will say, maybe don't keep like a little note on the pages of the map where you killed people.
Idiot.
I would like you to not murder people.
Yeah.
But I do think you're pretty fucking dumb.
Yeah.
So anyway, he was not immediately charged with Skaggs' murder until May 26th, which is when her body was identified via the dental records. And then investigators had a break in the case when Shane Williams, who had been arrested in Los Angeles for robbery, told detectives where he'd hidden the gun. The investigators searched the area, which was again near a hiking trail, and were able to test it and determine that it was the one used in Hanson's murder earlier. So again, why are you lending out murder weapons?
Idiot.
I feel like the tagline for this podcast should be serial killers are not that bright.
Nope. Dumb as shit.
Yeah. And so the gun was chased back to Molly Purnell, the one earlier. And she said, oh, yeah, it was stolen. And then when they threatened to indict her as an accomplice, she was like, actually, yeah, I bought it and I gave it to Carpenter. Sorry about that. I've got to be honest, I would have still charged her as an accomplice.
Yeah.
Following his arrest, the parents of 17-year-old Anna Medjeva, she'd gone missing in Daly City in December 1980, and the police were like, oh, she's clearly a runaway anyway. Let's not investigate it. As it turns out, Carpenter went regularly to the bank where she worked, and finally, they were like, maybe we will look into this as a homicide. And then they found her body in June 1981. But the condition she was found in made it unlikely for her cause of death to be determined. He's also suspected of the 1979 murders of Jennifer McDowell and Diane Steffi, who were strangled to death in the Santa Cruz Mountains. But he was cleared as a suspect in both cases. But on May 24th, 1984, his trial for the murders of Ellen Hansen, Heather Skaggs, the attempted murder of Stephen Huttle were opened at the Criminal Courts building. They sought the death penalty for him, outlining that, well, I mean, quite obviously, whenever they've let him out, more people have been assaulted or murdered. Yeah. So, I mean, I would probably seek the death penalty as well. For some reason, no matter how long you keep giving him in prison, he keeps getting out.
Yeah, he ain't learned his lesson.
Yeah, exactly. So, right, during closing arguments on July 3rd, I want you to brace yourself for this. Nothing will be able to prepare you for what I'm able to say next. So, during closing arguments on July 3rd, the defense stunned the courtroom when one of Carpenter's lawyers, Larry Bigham, admitted that his client had killed both victims, but said that will not be an issue in your deliberations, citing Carpenter's competency instead. Now, you'll be thrilled to know that the prosecution went, "Did you just admit that he was guilty? Oh, then he must be guilty for these other crimes as well. Thanks for that." The jury deliberated for 8 hours on July 5th and found him guilty on 2 counts of murder, 1 count of attempted murder, and 1 count of rape, 1 count of attempted rape. And they felt that he had met the special circumstances to allow him to be eligible for the death penalty.
Yay.
Good.
Good.
I'm very glad. I think it's bizarre that you would suddenly admit to your client's guilt in closing arguments.
Yeah.
Odd thing.
Right.
So when they were deciding whether he should have the death penalty, the prosecutors called up an 18-year-old, Tina Vance, who Carpenter had been acquainted with. And acquainted is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. When she was 14, she met Carpenter in 1980 during a car ride from Fresno to San Francisco. He showed her his briefcase containing a gun, wires, ropes, and a gag, claiming to use them to scare people. So, acquainted with. How do you, as a man in his 50s, become acquainted with a 14-year-old who you then essentially show a murder kit to?
What the fuck?
Yeah, unfortunately, the questions will not be answered. The defense tried to use his childhood as a defense and summoned 2 of his childhood friends who said that Carpenter's mother would physically abuse him to the extent that it was noticeable as abuse to other kids in the 1940s. You know, this is a time when you could take a belt to your child and no one would raise an eyebrow.
Yeah.
The prosecution called Thomas Siazaz, who is a professor of psychiatry from Syracuse, New York. He said that having a bad childhood does shape a person's personality, but it does not affect their decision-making skills, particularly the decision to murder people. He didn't say that, I just felt it was implied. So anyway, thank God he was sentenced to death on October 5th, marking the end of a 5-month trial. The sentence was formally imposed in November, and on November 26th, he was moved to death row at San Quentin State Prison. After his sentencing for the San Jose murders, he was then arraigned in Marin County for the murders committed there. The defense team entered the plea of double jeopardy, saying that because Carpenter's role in the Marin County murders was brought up in the LA County trial, that obviously this was a violation of state law.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was denied by the Supreme Court of California, and his trial commenced January 1988. They also sought the death penalty. Although I'm like, he was already sentenced to death. Are you going to give him more death penalties?
I don't know. It's only
Oh
one.
well. The prosecution called up Shane Williams because he didn't want to be tried as an accessory, so he agreed to turn state's evidence.
Mm-hmm.
And in April Carpenter took the stand in his own defense.
Oh,
What are you doing?
yeah. And well,
Oh my God. Now, Carpenter was unable to speak clearly due to his stutter, but tried to say that the friend that had given him the gun in the first place was lying. He was convicted on 5 counts of first-degree murder and also found guilty on 2 rape charges and 1 attempted rape. He was recommended the death sentence, and this was formally imposed on July 19th. So Carpenter became California's oldest death row inmate in 2006 following the execution of Clarence Ray Allen. In 2009, they re-examined evidence from the 1979 murder of Mary Bennett and made a DNA match, as I mentioned earlier. Carpenter remained on death row awaiting execution until 2019, when California Governor Gavin Newsom instituted a moratorium on executions in California. And, right, I don't think the death penalty is an effective deterrent to crime. I think there is a risk of killing the wrong person.
Yeah.
And also I think this is my personal opinion, but I think that you should have to sit in prison for the rest of your days, knowing that the reason that you cannot go out wherever you like, that you are stuck in a box, that you are told when to eat, when to sleep, basically when to use the bathroom. I think you should have to live like that for as long as possible.
Yeah.
And always think, well, this is a fucking terrible thing, and my life is miserable, but I just have to stay here until I die. Next up in the podcast, we are going to the segment called What Would Penelope Garcia Do? That's a segment that we're going to run every week, and it's going to point people towards like an article or a helpline or a charity that is set up to help the people affected by themes raised in the episode. This one, we decided offer people some suggestions for help for people with OCD. Getting help for obsessive compulsive disorder, you can actually refer yourself, if you live in the UK, directly to an NHS talking therapy service, and the NHS link, which I will put in the description, it gives you a thing to find NHS talking therapy services in your area. You can also see a GP and talk about your symptoms, and they will refer you to a local talking therapy services if necessary. And if you think someone you know may have OCD, try talking to them about your concerns and suggest they get help. You aren't alone. There are also support groups, and Sara is going to tell us about one of the UK-based charities.
So the charity is OCD UK, and they offer online support groups, but not just the OCD sufferers, but they do support groups for the family and friends of OCD sufferers as well. They do bi-weekly Zoom meetings on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And if you need any more information about these meetings, the dates of meetings, or links to register to join the meetings, visit ocduk.org.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you, Sara. And just for I'm guessing a lot of people may be an American audience, so I would just like to link people to the International OCD Foundation. They have online, you can click to find help, learn about more OCD, and get involved by raising awareness or fundraising to help people who have OCD. Their website is iocdf.org. That's iocdf.org for the International OCD Foundation. They also have a Spanish language version of their website, I presume because it's an American website and there are a lot of people with Spanish as a first or second language in America. But yes, please, if you feel that you may have symptoms of this, please discuss it with your GP, and please let someone in your life know.
For this week, we'll come back next week when we'll be discussing Criminal Minds, Season 1, Episode 3, Won't Get Fooled Again. And you can also rate and review us on whichever platform you're using to listen to our podcast. It really helps more than you know.
Until next time, this case is closed.